Hey, hi, good afternoon. Uh, let's wait for 5 minutes for now, okay? After that, we'll start the class and let's everyone join. We'll see how many members join, and in 5 minutes, I will start the class, okay? Just wait. Yeah, good afternoon. Till then, if you have any doubts regarding anything, I think previous class I didn't took that class. My colleague Josna was took, so I will start from that previous class where I stopped, like on Wednesday or Tuesday. Yeah, I think I took the class on Tuesday, right? So from there we started functions, right? So user defined, predefined. From there only I will start the class. Like today we have discussions on that methods only. Methods are nothing but functions, right? So I will start from there itself. So let's wait to join your friends, and after that I will start the class. Till then, if you practice anything, if you face any issues regarding anything like installations or anywhere, any program you have done, you can ask me in the chat box. Okay, then let start the class. Okay, let me share my screen. Please tell to your friends to join the class. Okay, these are important classes and the basic classes which makes your foundation good. So just tell them to join the classes. And in the previous classes, I think we discussed about the methods, right? We discussed about the predefined methods and what are the methods we have and what is actually method or a function. Okay, so I explained all these things, right? So function is a block of a code that performs a specific task when you call that function. Okay, so there is a syntax for that. First, we need to write the return type and the method name, some meaningful name, and the parameters to send and the return and the value, or if you are not returning anything you can write the method body. Okay, so these are the different types we have in the method. Return type of a value are returning from that function, and what is a method name, and what are the parameters are nothing but inputs for that method. Okay, why we use methods and what are the importance of the methods? Because enables us to reuse the same code wherever we call. So that is known as a reusability. And debugging to find the error easily. Readability, okay. Modularity means when you want to perform a big task, you can divide that task into small functions so that your project can be uh, completed in a short span of time, and it gives you the modularity of the project, okay. And there are different types of methods, which are predefined methods and the user defined methods. So predefined methods are nothing but in the Java installations only the methods are defined for, okay, methods are already defined in the Java libraries. Okay, these are the small examples I have set on that. Okay, math dot square root, math dot max. Okay, this is not the max, this is max 10 comma 2. So it will return the max of the two numbers, and this is return the length. Okay, we already discussed about the string class. Okay, so these are the predefined methods, and the user defined methods I have already explained to you with the program also. I think 1 second, let me, this is right. So there are different types of user defined also, where we can send the, we can create a method with no return and no parameters, which means this method will not take any inputs and it will not return anything, but it has a method body which will print the hello students and enter the number of for additions. Okay, so which means this is a no return and no parameters. So we can create the different types of methods in the user defined also. So this is a one time, which is nothing but no return and no parameters. And we have the return, we can return the parameter with the parameters. Okay, this is no return no parameters, but here with return and with parameters I am returning something, and also I am taking the input for this method. So this is known as with return and with the parameters. And here with no return with the parameter, we are taking the input but we are not returning anything, we are just directly printing that. When we call this method, it will directly print it out, it will not return anything. If the method returning anything, you need to store it in some value. Okay, you need to store it in the variable. So here we have no return but with parameter, it accepting the inputs but it's not returning anything. So here it is returning something but it is not taking any inputs. Okay, in the static conditions, when you want to return something, okay, but without any parameters, we use the return and no parameters. Today the topic is about the method overloading. Basically the method overloading will comes under the objects oriented, but let me explain about what is method overloading and why it's important. Okay, so let me explain this also, and we will go with the static versus non-static method also. Okay, so and let me explain about the recursion example also. Okay, recursion example also. Recursion, a function is nothing but a function calling its function itself is known as a recursion. Okay, so let me explain about that also, and then we will create one small program on the real time, and then we will go to the JSPs. Okay, JSP where we are done, I think in that previous class they took the class on the insertion. Okay, and I will explain the same on the today's also. Okay, by connecting to the database, and we will take one form and we'll see uh, how to insert a data into a database by our project. Okay, so in the JSP I will explain about that. Today I will start with the method overloading. Okay, so what is method overloading, and what is the difference between the methods and the method overloading? Okay, so we go to the, okay, what is method overloading? So method overloading is nothing but the same method name but different parameters list. Okay, so when we call the method overloading is, we have the two methods but with the same name. We have these two methods and the same method names, but whatever the parameters are there, that we are giving with a different parameters list. Okay, different parameters list, which means we have same method name but different parameter list. Okay, different parameter list, which means imagine like I have one method called as a add. Okay, so there I will accept in one addition, I accept only integer numbers, which means integer a and integer b as a parameters, which is known as a input for that method. Okay, and I have another method same as a double add. Okay, I am using the data type as a double, and I'm taking the input as a double a and double b. So what it happens here, it has the same method name, which means add and add, but there are different parameters list. Whatever the input I am taking, those are the different. So this is nothing but a method overloading. Okay, this is nothing but a method overloading. When you are this is also known as a compile time. Okay, these can be defined on the compile time. Compile time is nothing but when you are calling add method by giving the input. Okay, by giving the input, if you are given the integer input, it will call the add int method. But if you are given the double input in that add, it will call that double method. Okay, so there is a difference between the two methods but the same name. Okay, but let me give one example here and we'll see that. Mm, I think let me create one class here. Okay, let me take one new class as a method loading public static void name and finish. Okay, so now what I said, method overloading means having the multiple methods with the same name but a different parameters in that same class. So this is my class. Now how can I create one method? How can I create one method? By the syntax of the method. What is the syntax of the method? First we need to give the return type. So here I want to return the integer data type. Okay, here I want to return the integer data type, and I want to give one add name. Okay, this is my method name. But what is the rules of method overloading is the method's name must have the same name. So imagine this is one method. This is one method. So let me take it as this is one method. Yeah, okay. It's, and I'm taking another double, okay, data type and same add method and same add method. So this is another method. So method overloading means same name. Here I have the method name same, and here also I have the method name same, but a different parameters in the same class. Here whatever the parameters you are taking, you have to give the parameters as integer a and integer b. Then only we will return a plus b. Okay, then only we can return the a plus b. Okay, this is a different, this is one type of a parameters. This is one type of a parameters. Here also if I have to return the double, I need to take the double x, okay, and double y. So then only I can return the double, right? Return x plus y. Okay, so here see the both the functionalities are same. Okay, both the functionalities are same and the both the method names also same. But whenever you are giving the parameters as integer, then it will call this method. If the parameters are in the double, then it will call this method. Okay, so here the method overloading has the same names but different parameters in the same class, which means same name, different behavior based on the inputs. Okay, whatever the inputs you have given, based on the inputs you have given, that method will be called. Okay, so the rules are nothing but the name has to be same and methods must differ by the methods has to be differ by the number of the parameters or the type of the parameters. Here you can give the same. Here, see, here I can give the same, but if you have given integer c, here you can give the c. See, in the previous it given the error, but when I change the errors, okay, when I change the parameters, it also, it is working fine. Why? Because here the rules of the method overloading is the name can be same, but whatever the parameters are you are giving in the number of the parameters or the data type of the parameters has to be different. Okay, has to be different. So that is why it's giving no error now. Okay. What else we can discuss now here? And one more thing also, like order of the parameters also you can change it. Like, let me remove this, and let me remove this also. Let me change this B and change it to A. Is it giving no type of the parameters or maybe the order of the parameters, but we'll go with the stick with this. Okay, different parameters numbers. Okay, here I have 3 parameters, here I have 2 parameters. Then how will it call the different methods? Okay, we have the same method, but how will call that? So based on that inputs, whatever, when we are calling that method, based on that it will decide which method has to be called. Okay, so return type does not matter for overloading. So whatever the return type you are giving, it doesn't matter, but it happens with the within the same class itself. Within the same class itself, the method overloading will works. Okay, so this is a basic one, and let me call that method and we'll see. So to call the method of the class, what we need to do first? Do you know what we need to do with our, how to call our methods? To call the methods inside our class, okay, we need to create the object of this class. Okay, we created method over class, right? So how can we create the object of this class? Equals to, by using the new keyword and the class name. Okay, so where we have to create the object of this class. Now when we, by using the MC object of the class, we can access the methods. See, here we have a different types of add, okay, but with the same name but different parameters. If I have taken add, okay, now it giving double, right? So if I taken 2 and let me take the 1, and we'll see, okay, what might be the output. And MC dot add, here I will give the 2.0 or 2.6 and 1. Okay, so now let me give MC dot add 1 comma 2 comma 3. Okay, so it's giving, and let me give MC dot add 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma 4 4. Okay, now see, it's not allowing me this function because see, the method add integer in the type method over is not applicable for the arguments for integers, which means it's saying whatever the parameters you are giving, for that parameters the method is not accepting because we didn't have that method in our class, but we are giving the parameters, but it's giving, it's showing you the error at the compile time itself. Okay, so but it allowing the all different types I have given. Let me print it out here, system. I think I have written right. Let me write the system as far as dn dot println of MC. So now let me do this here. Okay, save this and run this. Java application. See, it's giving according to the type of that what we are doing. Okay, 3 and 3.6 and the 6. So this is about the method overloading, where we have the same methods and different parameters in that method. Okay, so this is how it works. Compiler looks for a method that takes, when we are giving the two integers, okay, with the add method, the compiler will looks for the method that takes only two integers. Okay, when we have given the double, the compiler looks for a method that takes doubles. Okay, so when we are given the three parameters versions, the compiler find for the that three inputs version. Okay, so here the compiler will decide which method to call during the compile time. So why this is why we call this as a method overloading, and we can call it as a compile time polymorphism. And when we are discussing with the when we are in the objects oriented, there we have a topic called polymorphism. In the polymorphism, we have a two different types of polymorphism. One is runtime polymorphism, and another is a compile time polymorphism, which is a static polymorphism. Okay, so this is the method overloading is known as a method overloading is also known as a compile time polymorphism. Okay, compile time polymorphism. Okay, but again I will explain this in object oriented, but here we are discussing with the method, so I just given small example about the method overloading. Okay, so method overloading is nothing but we having the same method name, but we are having different parameters in that same class. Okay, same name but different behavior based on the inputs also, we can call it as like that also. Okay, this is a basic example for the poly sorry compile time polymorphism or method overloading. Okay, so now we'll go with the static and the non-static methods also. Okay, that is also important in the methods, which are nothing but the functions. Okay, so static and non-static. Static and non-static. So basically, when we are declaring the methods, we are just giving with the return type and method names, right? So in the methods, we can declare the methods as a static and non-static methods also. So first we'll go with the static methods. So static methods are nothing but it's belong to the class itself, but not to any object. So we can directly call them without any object creation of that class. Okay, now what we are doing, when we are creating a methods, which means functions, so we are creating an object for the class, then we are using that methods. Okay, but in the static methods we don't need to create object. Okay, those are not belongs to any object, but they are belongs to the class itself. In the non-static methods are it's belonging to the individual objects. Okay, it belongs to the individual objects, which means in the previous method, see here I created one object, right? MC dot new method. I can create another method also. I can create another object also here. See, m equals to new method. Oh, we can create n number of objects, which means these are the real entities, but one user we have one. Okay, let me print it out this. Okay, here not using MC, I'm using M. Okay, now also it will give when I run this program. See, it's giving me the output. Okay, as a 3. Okay, see, this is a separate user. Okay, imagine like a separate user, and he's accessing that add method. Okay, but when you declare that method as a static, it belongs to the class only. It's not belongs to any object. Here this object and these methods are belongs to that. Okay, this method is belongs to that object because we are creating object, and that those are non-static methods. Okay, those are belongs to the individual objects. Okay, and the static method characteristics are, so we have to declare the method as static by using the static keyword. Okay, see here I will create one example here. Okay, I will not return any type, so I will giving the not return type means void, and let me give the display message here. Okay, I'm just creating one method, and inside that I will print it out something like this: print ln. Mm, let me print it out as hello from static method. Okay, hello from static method. So this is a one method I am taking, and to declare this method as a static, we need to give the keyword. We need to use a static keyword. Okay, we need to use a static keyword. See, by using a static keyword, I created this method as a static. Okay, this is known as a static method, and it can be called without creating any object. In previous ways, let me write it another one. Here, let me create one display function, and here, let me print it out. Let me print it out like this. Non-static method. Okay, so now this method is a non-static method. Okay, this is a non-static method, which means here there is no static keyword. Okay, here there is no static keyword, and it can be called using an object only. In the previous way also, when we want to call this method, we need to create the object of this class, which means static non static. So here what I need to do, I need to create an object for this static and non-static class by using the new static and non-static. Okay, imagine like, so now by using this object I can call only the display method. By using that object only I can call the display method. So why? Because this is a non-static method. But in the case of the static methods, here without creating any object, okay, without creating any object, we can call that method. Okay, can access only static variables and the static methods directly. Okay, we can access in the class by using static variables and static methods directly. So memory allocated only once when the class is loaded. When the class is loaded, then only it will create the method memory for that static methods. But in the case of the non-static cases, okay, each object has its own copy of data, so its memory allocation will be different for each object. Okay, so it can access both static and non-static members also. Okay, in the non-static method characteristics. Okay, so now when we want to call the non-static methods, how we can call? By using the class name. By using the class name here, when I want to call, let me write it here, to call the static methods. To call the static methods, here we have to use a class name dot. Okay, class name and the dot. See here it displaying, right, display message, but it's not displaying the display method, right? See, this display method is not here. We cannot access by the class name, because why? It's a non-static display method. It's a non-static display method which has to be called by using only object. But the static method, we can call it by the class. Okay, we can call using the class name. So now here let me call this, okay, display dot message. But now sc, this is an object, right? So when I use this object, see here I can get the display method, which is a non-static method. Okay, which is a non-static method. Okay, let me print it out. This, let me write this. Here one as some application. See, hello from the static method, hello from the non-static method, hello from the non-static method. So these are the two different types of methods. Okay, static and non-static, but it's a important. Okay, so when you are dealing with this basic ones, now this is about static and non-static, and let me give one example on this static and non-static, and I think it didn't given a big example on the Yeah, I given on the method overloading, right? So let me give one example here. Mm, see, let me create one more class as a basic test. Okay, new class. Let me take the class name as a test, and let me take the public static void main and finish. Okay, this is my class name as a test. Okay, class name as a test, and let me take one integer school code. Okay, I'm just taking the school code here, and 101, and let me take the string as a student name. Okay, I'm taking the student name. Now I will create one static method. Okay, I will create one static method and I will create one non-static method. I will create one static method and I will create one non-static method. Then we will give the username or student name by calling that and by creating the object names. Okay, so let me do one thing here. Okay, let me create first static void show school. Okay, imagine I'm creating the show school. So here I need to give the school code now. Okay, so let me give system dot println of school code. Okay, println of school code. Now here, what can I give? The school code was stored in this, right? So let me give the school code here. Now see, it's giving me the error. Why? See, cannot make a static reference to the non-static field school code, which means this is not a static variable. So we can't use in the static method. So to declare this as to use in the static method, we have to declare this as a static. Okay, then it will see the error was gone. Okay, this is a static variable, so we can access here. Now, let me create a non-static method. Let me create a non-static method as a show student. Let me give as a show student. Now here system dot out dot println of, let me give as a student here. I think I need to give it in the strings. Okay, now let me give the student name. Okay, now here I can also want to print the school code also. Just want to print out the school code also. See, here we can access a static method also, but here we can't access any static variables. Okay, any non-static variables. Here in the static method we can only access the static variables, but in the non-static we can also access the static variables also. Okay, now when we want to call the static method, how we can call? By using the just class name, right? Test dot, okay, show school or school code. Sorry, those are the variables, right? So show school method. Okay, I can call, but when you want to call the non-static method, what we need to do? We need to create the object for that, right? So let me create the object for that by using the new keyword test. Okay, okay, now I created the object for that class. Now I need to give the student name, right? I didn't given the student name here. Let me give it here by using this object s1 dot student name equals to, let me give it as a Radha. Okay, I just given the name for that variable. Now when I use this s1 dot, okay, student name method, okay, so that's a variable. So s1 dot show student, right? Where is the method? Yeah, here we have. So student. Now let's see what's it will print. Run this. Okay, so the student So here see the school code will be 101 and the student name is see here we are printing the student name, right? So here it's printing the student name and the school code as 101. Okay, school code as a 101. So there is a difference between the statics and non-static. You have to uh, think the differences, whatever the differences we have. So okay, the static method, the whatever the static methods we have, those are belongs to class. Okay, the non-static methods are belongs to the object of that class. Okay, this is a major difference, which method belongs to which one. Okay, so the static methods are belongs to the class and the non-static methods are belongs to the objects. Okay, so we can call the static methods, we can call the static methods by using which one? By using the class name. Here we have the class name as a test. By using the class name, we can call the static methods. We can call the classic static methods. But when you want to call the non-static, we need to create an object for that. And by using the object name, okay, by using the object name, we can call the non-static methods. We can call the non-static methods. So these are differences we have, like in the memory also. Okay, so once created once per only one class. Okay, for the show school method it will create only once, but in the non-static methods, okay, it will created the memory for the each object. If you created another object like s1 or if you created s2, it will create a separate memory for that s2 object of this method. Okay, and we can also access only static members in the static method. Okay, in the static method we can access only static members, which means it has to be static variables. But in the non-static we can access non-static and static variables also. Okay, so and in the so these are the major differences between the static and the non-static methods. Okay, so now we discuss about method overloading. So method overloading is the same name but a different parameters list. We can call it as also compile time polymorphism. And the static methods are belongs to the class and they can share the logic. Okay, they can share the logic. And what else? Non-static methods, those are belongs to objects and those are the individual behaviors. And the static methods are called with the class name and non-static methods need to be called by the objects only. Okay, non-static methods are called by the objects only. So this is about the methods. Okay, so we have a different types of methods and we discussed about all everything in this methods and the functions. So methods can be called as a functions also. There is no difference between functions and methods. Now we will go to the JSP. Okay, let's take a few minutes of a break, and in the meantime, if you have any doubts regarding anything, you can ask me. If not, just take the 5 minutes of break and come back again. We will start the JSP. Okay, so I think in the JSP we need to connect to the database and how we can create. Okay, so I will show you. And if you are not aware of software installations of the SQL, let me know. Okay, so I will show you the software installations today, like SQL and how to install the SQL. Okay, so you have to download MySQL 8.4 and SQL community from the GitHub, I think so. So I have the links of that. If not, I will share that jar files also in the group. Okay, so we'll do the practice first, then we'll think about that. Let's take 2 minutes or 3 to 5 minutes break and we'll start that JSP class. Okay. Okay, guys, let's start the JSP now. Okay, let me change the perspective to the. Sorry, we are in the Java itself, right? So let me change the default one and let me remove this all, close all, and go to our JSP project. Okay, in our web app, did we create a library, right? So here we need a MySQL connector one, okay, to connect with our database. I already explained to you that one, and the connect file. So here we need to connect with our database. So I have connected, okay, I have written some code, so which means it has to be load with the data drive. Okay, it has to be load the driver, the database driver, and here we need to establish a connection between our database. Okay, this is our JDBC MySQL. Okay, I'm using MySQL and the local host, and this is my database name, my first JSP project, and this is my username, and this is my password. So basically we require all these username and the password when you are installing the MySQL 8.4 version in your system. So I think I will explain the installation of the users username and all those things in the next class. Okay, so let's go now with that. Okay, our database was connected. It just printed out the database as connected successfully. So first, before that, I said, right, you need to create the database in the SQL one. So this is my SQL yoke community. Here I connected with my database, so database server. So here is that my first project, right? So this is my first project database, and here I have to create the tables to insert the data. Okay, here I need to create the table to insert the data. So before that, I just created this. Now in the welcome file, see here I use this connector file to display as wherever I use this connector file, there we can connect with our database. Now here I connected with the database, but now we'll go to this page number 2, which means register, right? So page number 2, go to the page number 2, and here we have one form with a name and email. Let me give me two more fields here. Let me take two more fields here, which means let me take the password. Okay, let me take the password, and let me take the mobile number also. Okay, and let me take the mobile. Let me take two more details as mm, date of birth, and let me take the address. Okay, let me take the address and date of birth. Okay, so name, email, and this one I'm taking the one form to take the input from the user. Okay, so how we will take, by using the form, but here I'm not connecting any database. Okay, here I'm not connecting anything, so just simply go with this. So name, so I given username, email. For password we have a type called the password. Okay, we need to use that type, and here let me change the password pw name. And for the mobile we have the type was tel, and let me change the name to the mobile. Okay, and the date of birth we have a date, and here let me change the name to dob, and the address here in place of the input, let me take the text area. Okay, so it will give you the your input part, so text area. Let me change the name to the address. Okay, so submit. So when I submit, in the previous I just go on to the welcome page and displayed my name and email. But what I will do now, I will take another file name as register process. Okay, register process.jsp. So register process.jsp, which means, so now I need to create the one file with the name of register process. Let me create one file here. So what to do with this file? To get every data which you have taken in, which you are given input to the user. So input will enter this data and submit that data. Okay, and he will click on the submit button. So here let me give the value as a register. So what it will do, it will display the value as a register button. So here, when you click on the register button, the data, whatever is there, it will be sent in the request form to this register process. Okay. So here we have to process the data. Here we need to process the data, which means we need to retrieve the data first. Okay. First, how to retrieve the data? By using a request.get parameter. Okay, so here we have different parameters like a name, username, user email, password, mobile name. So we need to retrieve every detail in the register process. Okay, let me retrieve first. String username equals to request. Okay, this is a request dot get parameter. So by using the request form body, we need to retrieve our all the details, which means username. Okay, this is my username I have given in the page 2, which is registered username. Okay, now I need to register, I need to retrieve the email. So just like this, string username, let me retrieve the user email. Okay, user email equals to request dot get parameter. Here let me give the user email. Okay, so same here. Okay, so what is here, we have the password, right? So pwd by the name. Here by using, let me give the pwd here and here. Here you can take any name. Okay, it's not mandatory to take the same name. Here you can take any name. Here whatever the name we have given in the input tag, that name has to be kept in the request body, because in the request body it will retrieve the data by its name itself. Okay, now here we given the mobile number. So let me take the string mobile equals to request on parameter of mobile. Okay, so now we are retrieving every data. So what else we have? Date of birth and the address. Okay, DOB and the address. So let me do one thing here. Okay, so this will be go to the date of birth and this will be go to the address. So here in the name, let me give the DOB in the name of this. Let me give the address. Okay, now we are retrieving every data. Okay, so let me print out each data so we can see that the data is printing or not. So whenever in the JSP, when you want to print the data at your client side, you need to use the out.println. Okay, so here let me print it out the username. So just like that, let me print it out all the details, which means user email, password, okay, mobile, date of birth, and address. Okay, which means here let me take username, let me take the email, let me take the password. Okay, whatever the names I have given, those are stored in this variable, right? So I just giving that mobile, okay, and the date of birth. So whatever the date of birth is, that date of birth and the address. Okay, and this is a address. Okay, let's see what happens when we run this project. So before that, let me stop my preview. Okay, let me stop this one and we'll go to this now. Now, when I run this project and go to the register page, now it's set this function. Okay, so go to the register page. This is right. So register page, and we have all the different details. See, database also connected successfully, and here, let me take the name and email. Okay, and the password. See, the password is not showing all my password. It is giving me the dot symbol because we use a type known as a password. So that's the reason it's not giving anything. Okay, 999989, and see, this is the date of birth and date of birth, and this is the address. See, it is given bigger size of input because we use a text area. Okay, kbhp and register. When I click the register button, see, it's going to the register process.jsp and it's printing my name and it's my printing my email and password and the number and the date of birth and the kbhp, whatever the data we are reading here. But now what I need is I need to connect with the database. Okay, I need to connect with my database in the my first JSP project. Here I will create one table now first. Okay, here I will create one table to store my client data, which is nothing but username, email, password, mobile, date of birth, address we have, right? So whoever are registering in my project, I am saving that data in my database. So to store the data of a particular customer, we need to create the table in this database. Okay, see here, first I need to select my database name, which is nothing but my first JSP project. And in this, okay, in this query table, this is a query, right? So here we need to write one query to create a table. How to create a table? By using the create, okay, create table. Okay, what table you want to create? And a register table. So let me create as a register. And here, okay, and here for what I'm saying is, for every user whoever are registering in my application, okay, for every user I need to give one user ID. Okay, I need to give one user ID. So first let me create with my user ID. Okay, so the variable, the column name, and whatever the column storing, the data type has to be on the B side of that. Like, okay, so now I want to create one user ID column. So in that user ID column, I want to store the numbers. So what are the numbers data types? It has to be big integer. In the SQL, we use a big integer. Okay, so now for every user, I need to give the number automatically. Okay, automatically. So here I am using auto increment. Okay, here I am using auto increment. And for every user, the ID has to be unique. Okay, the ID has to be unique and it has to be primary. Okay, so for primary I am giving the primary key. Okay, because that ID, whatever the ID we are creating for that user, that has to be unique itself. That has to be unique itself. Okay, so after that, after user ID, what we have the name, right? So here let me take the name. Okay, here I'm taking the name as a column name, and that column, whatever the name you are giving that column, okay, whatever the data has to be entered into that column, you have to declare that data type. In the SQL, we will declare varchar for the strings, okay, which is nothing but the characters. Okay, and this is the size of that column. Okay, the size of that column name varchar, and we have also email. Okay, to store the email, I'm giving column name as email and the data type as a varchar. Okay, and to store the password, I'm creating pwd column. Okay, and the data type as a varchar again. Okay, and what else we have? Mobile number and the date of birth and address. Let me give the mobile also. So here also let me take it as a varchar. Okay, and here we have date of birth and address. So for the date of birth, let me take as a DOB and let me take it as a date. Okay, I just want to take it as a date. So for the date, we have to use a date. And address, let me take address. Here I will take the address as a text. Okay, here I am taking the address as in the text, but I'm not giving the value because the text will store n number of the characters. So I'm giving the text. So now, and I also want to store the default time when the user was registered. So whenever the user is registering, right, so I want to store the time of that particular registration. Time of that particular registration, which means I am taking register date. Okay, I am taking the register date. So in this register date column, I want to add the date and time of that register. Okay, so let me take the data type as date and time. Date and time. But here I will not send any date or time. By default, when we are inserting the record, it has to store that system time, which means if I inserted record in this now, it has to store this time and the date, which means 410 and the 16. Okay, so for that we need to use default. Okay, by default, when you are entering the record, it has to store the current timestamp. Current timestamp. So by using this default current timestamp, whenever the record was insert into this register table, okay, insert into this register table, it will record that date and time in that column. Okay, now we have to run this query. Run this, see the query table, one query was executed and one is success. Now let me refresh this and see inside the tables. When I click on the plus symbol, see I have the registered table. Okay, when I click on this and click on the table data, see my table was created. Okay, so what it's saying, first it's saying user ID, so it's a data type of begin, and the name varchar. Okay, same, it will show the name and the these are the columns. So in MySQL, in the relational database, the data will be stored in the rows and columns in the tables. Okay, in the tabular forms, it's stored in the rows and the columns. The columns are the headers. Okay, email, password, mobile, date of birth, address. Okay, and the registered date. So what it's saying, current timestamp. Current timestamp. Now we created one table. Now we created one table. So now what we need to do first we need to connect with our database in this process. Okay, wherever you are retrieving the data, we need to connect with the database. So what we need to do, we need to connect with the database. To connect with the database, we created one file which known as a connect. Okay, now I will include that connect file in my process. Okay, so now by using include tag, include file equals to connect.jsp, connect.jsp. Now here, by using this connection object, okay, I can insert the data into, the database. Okay, so as I said to you also in my previous explanations on the JDBC, see after connections what we can use, we can use a prepare statement to execute the queries. Okay, now to need to insert into that table, I need to write one query. So to execute the queries in the JDBC, we need to use a prepare statement. Now I connected with the database. Now I need to use a connection object of that class. Okay, which means con. So let me remove this everything now for minutes. Now I need to use a prepare statement. Prepare statement. Okay, and let me create the object of this prepare statement equals to. So by using the prepare statement, okay, by using the connect, which means a con object, so now con was included in this file. Now let me create a con. Okay, and connecting to my database con dot prepare statement. Okay, so here I'm using a prepare statement. I'm creating an object of that by using the connection dot prepare statement. Here inside this bracket, see what it's expecting from us. It's expecting string SQL query. So to insert all this data, we need to write one query. So that the query is nothing but insert into, and you need to give the table name. To which table name, which table you want to insert, you need to give the table name. So what is my table name here? I have created the table name as registered. Okay, I created the table name as registered. So here I need to give the table name as registered. Insert into registered. Okay, and here you need to give the all the columns name. Expect here for the user ID, we are now need to provide any input because it automatically incrementing that value. Okay, it automatically allocating the value to that user ID. So there is no need to include user ID in our query. So then what else we have? And in the date and time, in the registered date also, we don't need any input because it by default it will allocate the current timestamp. So what else are remaining? Expect registered date and the user ID, whatever the fields are there, we need to do that. And in the column name, whatever the column name you have given, like here I given the name, right? So here also I need to give the same name itself. Whatever the column name you have registered for that table, you have created for the registered table, that name has to be given in this query because this query will execute and in that SQL itself. Okay, it will check with that column names whether the column names are same or not. If the column names are same, then only it will insert the data into that column. If not, it will throw you the error. Okay, if not, it will throw you the error. I will show you that error also. See, in my SQL I have given the name, but here let me give the name as a game. Okay, so let's see, then we will see why it's not work and how it's work. Okay, so after the name, what we have given, email. Let me give the email, and I given the pwd. Here whatever the column names I given, right, so that column names has to be equal, and given the mobile name, and also given the date of birth, and also given the address. So there is no need of any register date or user ID because they are defaultly allocating the data. And insert into the register came, I just given, I intentionally given the wrong name. Okay, and email, password, mobile, now date of, and address. So for this we need to send the values, right? So here what I will do, and I will give the values. Okay, so inside this bracket, how many values you are sending? 1, 2, 3, okay, 4, 5, 6. Here you need to use the 6 placeholders, which are nothing but question marks. Okay, 6 placeholders. Okay, I now selected 6 placeholders. Now, after selecting all the 6 placeholders, okay, after selecting all the 6 placeholders, now I need to replace this placeholder. I need to set the value to this first placeholder for this name. Okay, this is a name which was stored in this placeholder. So for the placeholder, I will set the value, which means here let me do the ps dot set. Okay, now first place, or what is the first placeholder is representing? It's representing the name. The where is the name was stored in this username variable. So now that variable I will give, that is in the string data type. So I'm using ps dot set string, ps dot set string, and 1 comma. So that is the first placeholder. So the first placeholder we need to set the name. So that name was stored in the username. I'm selecting that username, and I'm setting this username to this name, which means I am sending that username to the tabular name column, okay, which was in the first. So this is for the first placeholder. And for the second, what we are storing? We are storing the email ID. Okay, now let me create the email ID. So it's, which is in the second column. Okay, which is in the second question mark. Okay, and here I will give the user email because the user image was stored in the user email. So just like that, let me set the values for the, all the remaining things, which are nothing but third and fourth. So for where is the third, which is a pwd. So pwd is a password, right? So it was stored in the password. And the fourth, it is a mobile. So let me store the mobile. Okay, now here comes one. Now here the date was in the string. Here the date was in the string, but here we created a dob as a date. Okay, it accepts the SQL date. To convert the string into the SQL date, what we need to do? We need to first we need to import one thing. Import java.sql.date. Java.sql.date. Okay, now I have imported date module. So here by using that date, we need to create the object of that date object, dob equals to date dot value of a string. We are here, we need to give the string of the date, okay, which is nothing but dob. So here the dob will be stored, and this will be converted into SQL date. So now this SQL date we can set the value here. So how we can set that value for the date of birth? ps dot set date. Here also we need to give the date 5 comma dob. Okay, so now when that date was stored in this dob, it will accept because it is converted into SQL date. Okay, to convert it to SQL date, what we need to do? We need to import java.sql.dot class. Okay, and here we need to use that dot data dot value of that string data date. Okay, then it will convert into SQL date. Here we are using ps.set date. Okay, and after that, what else we have remaining? Address. So here ps dot set string of, okay, set string of 6 comma address, 6 comma address. Okay, now we set the values for all the registered table. But what we need to execute this code, right? We need to execute this query. Let me see one thing. Okay, we need to execute that query. So to execute this query, okay, what we need to do, we need to use this ps object, ps dot execute, okay, execute update, execute update, execute update. Now when we use this ps dot execute update, it will give you the output. Okay, let me do one thing here. We cut it this and ps dot execute update. See this execute update, what it's saying, it will execute the SQL statement, the prepared statement object, which must be an SQL data manipulation statement such as insert, update, or delete. Okay, whenever you are inserting or updating or deleting by using the prepared statement, you need to do the execute update. And the statement that returns nothing, such as a DDL statement, either it will return one, okay, count of SQL, or a zero, okay, so throws exceptions, which means, see, it will return you the type of the integer. So when you have used this execute update, when you use this execute update, it will give you the output as an integer data type. So I am storing that integer in the R. Okay, I am storing that integer in that R. If the R, if R, okay, sorry, I'm writing outside. Okay, here, if the R is, if the R is greater than 0, then only it executed successful. Then only it executed successful. If not, it is not executed successful, which means when you executed this query, if it is inserted properly in the database, then it will give you the greater than 0, okay, which means 1. If it is not greater than 0, which means fail, which means it will print you out like out dot print ln as failed to register, failed to register. But when it is greater than 0, it is registered successfully. So which means data inserted successfully. Okay, let me run this and we'll see how it's working or not. Go back, and here let me refresh this once again, and let me give the all the details here. radha@gmail.com. Okay, give the password and mobile number, select the date of birth, give the address, and click on the register button. Okay, so now what is happening? Line number 34, execute update. See, okay, this is showing me unknown column came in the field list, which means here we intentionally given the wrong column name. Here we given the wrong column name, because why? We need to know. Okay, I just said to you, right? Whatever the column names you have given in the table creation, you need to give the same names at the insertion query also, which means here in the place of name I need to give the n. So save it and refresh this once again. Okay, now see the database connected successfully and the data was inserted successfully. So now go to your SQL and refresh in this table. See, now the data was inserted and by default the user ID was there, and by default registered date also there. See 1614, which is 1615 now itself. Okay, so this is how we need to insert the data into the database by using, okay, by using the prepare statement and a connection file. Okay, in the connection file we connected with the database, and by using the prepare statement, by using the table creation and all the insertion, we have inserted data successfully. Okay, so this is about today's class, and if you have any doubts regarding anything, you can just ping me in the WhatsApp or in the group or in the chat box. Okay, we will meet you in the Monday class. Okay, thank you guys.